Hi, this is Bill Koenig for Straight Circle Martial Arts, and this is 10 mistakes that are made in kata or forms. In this tape, I'm going to use the word kata, but it also, applies to forms and, kung fu and taekwondo, tai chi, etc., etc. Anyways, number 10, distance. So many people do kata with wrong distance because they've never had any really practical experience of what the distance is. Give you an example. Like in my style, there's an elbow form that looks like this, right? 1, 2, 3. And everyone I watch do it, they lean. And that drives me clean up a wall. Like, drives me nuts. When he comes to me, right? Elbow distance is here, right? It's not out here where I can lean. But when you just practice in the air and you've never had personal experience with this, you make up your own distance in your head, which is wrong. And if you practice that over and over again, guess what? You teach yourself incorrect distance. So before you should even worry about what the distance of the form is, you should really work with some people to understand where your distance is correctly. Number 9, not understanding what forms are. Forms over the years have evolved in traditional martial arts, right? And probably when they were very first done, they were just very straight to the point, simple things, 1, 2, 3 moves. But then they evolved into multiple moves, and then they evolved into conditioning exercises while you're doing the moves, and then they evolved into spiritual exercises, open up energy centers and whatever in the motions also. So when you do a form, you're not just doing a fighting move, you're doing multiple things that often have not the greatest positions to fight out of. So if you're practicing how to do this from a form and believing this is a fight, right, something like this, you're kind of kidding yourself. But most people don't understand that and they take it literally and then they try and fight that way. No, you got to understand what forms are. They're a hybrid of a lot of different things. When you actually go to fight, you should practice in actual stances and positions. Number 8, visualizing. Visualization is a powerful tool, but only if you're ready for it. So we're going to go back to the incorrect stances and the ideas there. So if you're doing a form that requires a lot of conditioning and or spiritual work, and it has the fighting basic moves in it, and you're sitting here doing this, and something that's completely unrealistic to fight out of, and you're visualizing a fight like that, what are you programming yourself to do? You're taking your brain and teaching yourself to fight in that position over and over and over again, which is completely wrong. If you are going to visualize, you have to take whatever form you're doing, whether it's a long form, right? Something like this, and you should shrink it up to actually something you could fight out of if you're going to visualize. Otherwise, you're programming things into you that are inefficient and just aren't going to work. Number 7, trying to figure out the moves. I've had a lot of instructors tell people go figure the moves out, and most people that have these forms have never done the work to understand what the moves are in the first place, so they make things up. And the things they make up don't work. Like, they just randomly make up these weird moves, and they never practice them with a partner, they never try them. And then they go out in the real world and try to do this move that they made up in their head, and it usually ends badly for them. Don't worry about trying to figure out what the moves are in the beginning. It's not necessary. What you really want to do with it is just learn the form, and as you do other work, you'll figure the moves out as you go, but don't make them up. Number 6, absolutes. A lot of times when we do these things, we don't practice deviating from the motion. So we practice the kata, and we do the same move over and over again, and we expect that to work. So if he's here, right, and he throws this punch, and I've practiced this 1,000 times, I'm going to do exactly that, right? All of a sudden he changes the punch, and now I freeze and I panic and it doesn't work. Because in my head I've programmed an absolute. When you're doing your forms, you shouldn't do them as an absolute, you should do them as an option. So if I make a turn and I do this move, I should also be looking in my head for the point where maybe I need to adapt and change. Right? That's a hard thing to do in katas because we're so focused on the actual move. But you can't focus on the move. You should focus on it working, but you should focus on how do I get out of it if it doesn't work. Number 5, trying to fight exactly like the form. A lot of forms are based on nervous system or how the body works, right? So you'll see a form like this where you'll see like 1, 2, right? So this guy comes in, I hit him in the groin, he bends, and then I hit him on the shot. And so we practice that over and over and over again, or if we practice 1, right, 2, because he's doing that move. So we do those moves over and over and over and over again, and we practice that in there. And then that one day you go like this, and you miss. And he keeps coming. And then you go to do that same move, and it doesn't work because he hasn't set himself up for the mechanics. What happens a lot of times is we're trying to, we want it to be exactly like it is, and we assume that if we hit him, he's going to give us an exact response, which gives me another response. That's not necessarily true. Katas give you a basic idea. If I hit this part of the body will open up. But there's a distinct chance you may miss it, he may block it, or maybe you just kind of hit it a little bit and it didn't do exactly what you want. So if you think in an actual fight that you're going to do moves exactly like the kata, they're not. They're going to have to adapt and move and shift and play depending on what your opponent does. So when you're doing katas, at first I understand you want to do this just to kind of understand how the body works. But in the middle of your katas, like I said, you should expect them to fail sometimes. You should be ready to adapt and ready to change. Number 4, same place. A lot of people practice kata in the same place, on the same floor, in the same direction all the time. They get used to the walls. Their moves are dependent on surrounding areas. Most of us know better, like we change angles or directions. But seriously, try them outside once in a while. Try them on a hill, right? Try them on trees or uneven surface. You'll find the mechanics are going to change depending on the terrain and the angles that you're on. They say, well, that's not the same as the kata I was doing. That's the point. The point is you want to adapt. Otherwise, if you just get used to the exact same situation all the time, when you face something different, it's going to surprise you and you're not going to know what to do. Number 3, practicing with the same mechanics all the time. I know, you've learned your form, you're supposed to have it look exactly the same way every time. No, you're not. When you first learn these, you are taught a mechanic exactly because it's the first mechanic that you should learn. And that's fine, that's good if you're a beginner. How many people do you know have practiced that same kata for 20, 30 years and it looks the same as they were doing 20, 30 years ago? And they haven't learned a thing. What's the point? So when you do a form, right, I used to go to my instructor and say, hey, I'm going to do the same kata today, except I'm going to add wave to it. Right? I'm going to do the same kata today, maybe I'm going to add a little pop to it instead. And the beauty of him is he would always say, hey, go ahead, I want to see it. What can you create? What you can do with it? Don't get stuck in the same mechanic for 20 years. You will never learn anything. You'll never get any better. It'll never shrink. And you'll never improve. Number 2, too many kata. You know, traditionally, it wasn't uncommon to do one form for a year to 2 years. And then maybe you got another one, and it was close to the one before that. And then maybe after 4 or 5 years, you got another one. But in our society, bigger is better, more is better, right? So everyone does 20 katas really bad, and they don't do 1 or 2 of them really good. There's no reason in the first 5 years that you should know more than 3 to 5 kata. Period. Maybe less, right? Get good at the ones you want. Don't waste time. If you waste so much time doing katas and learning and memorizing stuff that you don't understand and can't do anyways, and it's taking time away from your other work, just learn enough. I think you'll find you'll have better luck. Number 1, not doing any prep work. What I mean by that is a lot of people do kata in the air because it's safe and fun and no one gets hurt and there's no scariness to it. And that's great, but you're not learning the actual kata. How you learn katas is you spend years with him punching at me and me playing with different directions and different angles, right? And different work and different distances and throws and joint locks and things that I can do to make this all happen. What happens is when you start doing free flow, you start playing and his body starts moving, those things that you do in Kata will kind of pop out because they're generic mechanics anyways. And then you'll go through it and you go, holy cow, look at that. That was from that. I recognize that. Or I recognize this. You won't need to do it. It'll just happen. If you do not do the prep work, the over and over work with people, body and pushing and pulling, you will never understand your forms. It's a myth that if I just do my forms magically, they'll come out in my head and they'll happen. It does not happen. You should do Kata sometime, but you should spend a lot of time doing the other work that makes your Kata better in the first place. Remember, Katas are actually a supplement. They're not meant for beginners. Katas are meant for long-term people who want to improve their skill. If you're a short-term martial artist and you're not going to do it a long time and you're doing 4 or 5 katas, you're wasting your time and you shouldn't be doing them at all. So take these tips and think of this as over 20, 30 years. Improve and learn and you'll get much better. This has been Bill Coney for Straight Circle Martial Arts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.